hot and noisy here. I'm at a place called Bradley's Head, and there's lots of noise out here. There's people practicing their yachts, getting ready for the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. And apart from all this noise and commotion that's happening here, it's very misty and foggy. Like looking at the Opera House now, very misty. And it's actually not mist, it's smoke. A lot of the eastern side of Australia and in South Australia too right at this moment, there's devastating bushfires everywhere, which is bad news for our wildlife.
Across New South Wales, 100 blazes, half of which are out of control. The green one.
The reason I'm here at this place called Bradley's Head is because this is where you find water dragons, as well as a few other cool things. It's quite a dry, subtropical, nice sort of nature walk through here. Oh, and there goes a helicopter. It's just crazy noise from humans here. Yeah, we've got helicopters, we've got planes buzzing, we've got planes taking water out to bushfire areas. Complete chaos. So it just takes a bit of a short walk here and I find dragons. Great little spot. Every time I see a dragon, they usually run off really quickly. And you get a little bit close and then off they go. Damn hot. And hot and noisy here. Bloody noisy. Christmas time. So these guys are active between September to June, and at winter time when it gets cold they'll dig themselves a burrow and they'll entomb themselves in there for a few months, slow themselves right down, go into a torpor. I'm able to find a quiet spot and I find one basking on a rock. He's got his back legs stretched right out, which I find really amusing. I see Tasmanian devils do that too. This rail is a good place to rest my sketchbook on. It's like a tiny drawing desk. I'm using the Derwent Inktense watercolour pencil here. It's good just to do a quick sketch and then add a bit of water and it's halfway to a watercolour drawing. Quite amazing the length of the tail. The tail's bigger than the body. The breeding period is between October and January, so it's sort of in the end of the breeding period now, and the females are digging their last holes to bury their eggs. Hang on, I might actually get a longer sketch in. It's keeping pretty still. By adding water, the watercolour pencil that I put down before dissolves, smudges around, and starts becoming like a watercolour painting. It's just moved. Good. The predators for these guys are snakes, birds, and sometimes other dragons. This dragon here's got a tick on the side of its face. Like a lot of Aussie reptiles, they get ticks. It's very tempting to try and catch this lizard and pull those ticks off, but it's against the law to catch them. You can be prosecuted because they are a protected species, and also I don't think I could catch one, they're so fast. I'm blocking on bits of colour with the watercolour that I've got. I like to carry this tin around with me. This travelling pack here is very, very handy for when I'm out and about, and I usually bring a little bit of white gouache with me as well. I'm using white gouache to put on some dot highlights. and I have company. The little jumping spider's come to check out my artwork. Looks like the lizard's gone back into a pose that I can use again. Not quite the same, but similar. It's enough for me to keep working on this. I'm also using a fine liner. This one's called a Coptic multi-liner, 0.3. And I've been working on the face while he was facing the other direction. They look all grey, but to get the colour across the back, I've had to mix up some browns with a little bit of green. So it's a really nice rock camouflage colour. It's just a touch of green in the grey. Hello, my little visitor's come back. Little jumping spider. Snuck in. Oh, now who says spiders can't be cute? That's adorable, isn't it? Alright, I'm going to go look for another dragon. Oop, there's one scuttling up a tree. Uh-oh, here we go. Right now the dragon's thinking, insects, yummy. But it's also thinking, bees, sting. But every time one moves, it brings on this response of, that looks like food. And then it thinks, oh, no, it's going to sting. Oh, the indecision. Will it or won't it? Insects. No, bees sting. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that movement. Oh, it looks like food. But those stingy things. Oh, it's so confusing for a poor lizard. Oh, that one really looked like food. No, but they sting. What am I going to do? I could be stuck up here for hours. Why can't I make up my mind? Young dragons feed nearly exclusively on insects. And a wide variety of them, which makes them a challenge for keepers to keep them, because they're constantly having to buy new bugs all the time. I'm going to do a quick rough sketch of this guy here, using my Derwent watercolour pencil. And I'm going to take some photos. It's so darn hot, I'm going to have to go home. So click off a few photos, get a few references. That's off back to the studio. Back in the studio, I have a few photos for reference to help me finish off some of the texture on this. I've got most of the pose on the spot. I'm adding a lot of watercolour, and I'm just using the same tools as I use out in the field. I got my aqua brush, which is really handy, and I'm now just blocking in lots of colour. Using now a fine brush and a bit of gouache, I've added just a touch of yellow to the gouache so it's not quite white, and that's doing a lot of the spots and the patterns. Adding a bit more yellow under the chin because there's a bit of warmth and the sun reflecting back up under that chin. Now I'm using a fine marker pen. This is another one that I took out in the field with me, so I'm getting a little bit of fine detail here. So I'm adding some more darkness in the background. I'm sort of playing off the values. Where the face is very pale, I want to put dark around that to make the head stand out a bit. And it's just a matter of just playing about, trying to get it right. The trouble with an animal which is so well camouflaged is once you put the background in, you've got to work out ways of making the animal stand out from the background, because that's how great the camouflage is. I think I've almost got it. I have to work on the tail. The tail looks a bit flat, doesn't look three-dimensional, so I might have to work on that a little bit more. I'm dabbing on a bit of white gouache onto the spikes along the back here, just to make that stand out from the background a little bit more. Now with the fine liner pen, I'm now doing contour lines. These are lines that describe around an object. So I'm trying to make that tail more three-dimensional looking by making it more rounded, because it was looking a bit flat. And also around the armpits and around the arm as well. It's about telling a story. Drawing's often about communicating an idea, and it's certainly not science, it's much more like writing, where you are putting down the lines that you need to do to tell the story. And I'm trying to tell the story that this is a rounded object, and so I'm using lines that sort of contour around the subject. And here's my water dragon. And before we go, let's have a quick look through the sketchbook. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Catch me in the next one. See you later.